Yeah. Because by your cousin.
You're gonna be sitting on the throne.
Good morning. It is 10 o'clock, so we will formally call this meeting of the Seneca County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, November 18th to order. Please join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Wagner, would you be kind to lead us in prayer?
Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beauty of the clean snow that you've created, for your provision each and every day. We ask for your blessing on our deliberations this day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Stacy?
Here.
Commissioner Board?
Here.
Commissioner Wagner?
Here.
We'll have the signing of the journal, and I accept a motion for the DVD recording of the previous board session from Thursday, November 13th, and the written index of that meeting.
I'll make a motion, we approve it as outlined.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. It's not blue on the big tray. We'll start with any adjustments to the agenda so that everybody knows if there's anything in particular we did not have printed that we're going to discuss, that we're going to do that. Anybody have anything to add?
I have one resolution for the sirens that Dan, that we advanced last session. We didn't get it in here in time. We had to wait for budget commission, so we got it in here after our deadline.
All right. Anything?
Did we get a final invoice from House Construction on the RTA building? We have not yet.
We have not.
Okay.
Anything to add to the agenda? Nikki? All right, then we'll proceed with the agenda as presented. And we're going to go right to, as scheduled, on our agenda was 10 o'clock to begin discussions regarding the Seneca County Museum. And so I guess I'm going to open this up just to, I guess, to get things rolling here. We are currently under the Board of Commissioners from the end of 2011 under a lease management agreement with the Seneca County Historical Society, and that's the way the operations have since been going. Obviously, a number of different concerns. Operationally, there's financial concerns, and I think there's also some longer-term needs that we really need to make sure that we get addressed. Some of these have been brought to our attention, some of them we knew were going on, etc. We are at the point, and this is just, I'm just sharing my opinion, this first, the two of these commissioners have heard this as well. We're entering our last renewable year of that lease agreement, so the time to address this is now. Hindsight's great, maybe it should have been 10 years ago, I don't know, but the time to do where we're at now is now, because we're going into that last. It was renewable up to 4 consecutive years, and 15 will be the 4th year. I'm going to propose my thoughts that we amend that current lease for that last year with a couple of different things. One, to address some of the financial concerns, specifically utilities, and also to make a request about an inventory being completed. I'm going to leave it at that. I guess I would like to due respect to ask the two commissioners if they want to share anything, and then we'll take to the floor. And we just would like you, we are recorded, other than probably about the back of Brittany's head here. If you're not in that front row, you don't get seen, but it will pick up your voice. So if you will, please state your name so that the recording does pick that up, because like I said, it might get harder to identify voices when you can't see the folks unless you want to come on up front when you address the group. So I guess, do either one of you want to make a statement before I take them from the citizens?
I wrote some thoughts down, but I'll wait till after we hear from you.
Okay, anything you want to say?
Yeah. First, we have to back ourselves up in, what was it, 2011, 2012, when the budgets were being cut, the economy was in an absolute downturn. Local government funds, the LGFIF funds were being cut. the commissioners, and they had to do something. And they were definitely in a flux. So I am not gonna second guess what the commissioners have done. Could they have done that or something else? I don't know, but they done it, and I can appreciate that something had to be done. Things are a little different today, but equally, I have to state that I know from a business standpoint, you can't, you always gotta look for the rainy day. What comes up will go down. There's no doubt about it. And yes, we're living in better times today. The economy's on an upturn. I can see that there are some additional funds possibly available, but yet I don't wanna, it is our job as commissioners to be prudent spenders, I don't know the right word, but prudent people to look at county funds and the taxpayers' funds. With that being said, while I support that we have to make some changes in the way that the museum is being run, and from what I understand, from all entities, that the museum is not able to flourish like everybody would want it to because of limited financial resources. We do know, and we gotta just lay it on the table, that we have a couple different groups, and there may have been some things in the past that may not, and I just like to bring things right on the forefront here. And it may not be supported the best by everybody, but I gotta tell you my thoughts. It's one thing you find about Fred Zoller, he's always gonna tell you what he thinks if you like it or not. That there may have been some issues in the past that we gotta just forget about, we gotta put aside. I know that there's been some thoughts and some proposals that have been brought out, and I understand there are some concerns and some issues with some of those proposals as to the workability of that whole thing. But also keep in mind, on the other side, I don't believe we are doing our job as commissioners of taking the responsibility completely on in the museum. Today, yes, okay, maybe we have the funds available, but I know there are going to be a lot of demands made on the budgets. And we got Board of Elections, we got raises, we got just a multitude of things that are out there that are in needs for the county. We have a Justice Center that we're trying to do, so just multiple things. So for the county to take it on completely, I got a problem with that, folks. I got a problem with that. Today we can afford it, but we have to make decisions that are going to be, we're going to have to adhere to years down the road, okay? And I know the proposal that was brought out was not overwhelmingly received, but I guess to come right out and to tell you my thoughts, I think that we need to really look at that type of proposal and put some bite in it. What I mean by bite in it is look at a third, and a third, and if we find out, and we have 7-member board, 1 commissioner, 2 that are appointed by commissioners, and the 2 groups, if we find out that one of the members aren't playing ball with us, then I would support the commissioners picking up 2/3 of the tab, and that entity that's playing ball with us be the other 3rd member. As long as all members are playing ball and working together, then I think makes the most sense to do it a third, and a third, and have this 7-member board. But again, the bite in it is, if somebody doesn't want to play in the arena, then they're out of the game. My support would be the commissioners would pick up that tab. So that puts everybody at the same level of interest. Let's work together what is in the best interest for the Seneca County Museum, for the residents of Seneca County, and to keep the least amount of cost on the county residents. And then it is shared equally by all 3. Repeat myself, if one of the 3 doesn't want to play in that game, then I would support the commissioners picking up 2/3 of the tab, and then now you got just 2 members. That's my thoughts.
I do have some more thoughts. Do you want to share anything before we turn it to?
Perhaps in fairness to the people, I ought to lay out what I'm thinking too,
Yeah.
in case they want to.
Well, so I'm wondering if I ought to finish what mine, but go ahead.
Okay. And I just wrote a few of these down. As was stated in the commissioners' meeting in Bloomville a few weeks ago, the decision to step back from operations of the museum came at a, as Mr. Zoller said, is a particularly bad financial time. We'd lost 50% of the local government fund, and I believe jail revenue was struggling at that time too. And that wasn't the only difficult decision that was made at that time. We went to a high deductible health insurance policy for all of our employees. If you ever had to tell 200 people that their health insurance isn't going to be as good as it was the year before, it's a real fun thing to do. At that time, two groups stepped forward and volunteered to take over operations. They both put together real nice presentations, and I have a copy of the Historical Societies here with me today. Either one could have run it, done a good job. The Historical Society was chosen. They've been doing it ever since. As Mr. Zoller said, times are better now. Times are a little different than they were 3 years ago or whenever it was. In my 10 years as commissioner, I've served through 2 down cycles, 2 different times where things have kind of tanked, and it's going to happen again at some point. Lord only knows when it's going to happen again. So like Mr. Zoller, I hesitate to take over operations completely of the museum, but I think we need to do something. I think times are good enough. We need to do something and show our support for the people that are doing so much to make it happen. I tend to agree with the statement, and I hope I'm not misquoting former Commissioner Dale Stacy when he spoke at Bloomville, that he felt we ought to take over utilities and maintenance of the building. That's what I heard him say. I hope others heard him say the same thing. That, by my estimate, would be $12,000 to $15,000 per year. Heat, light, general maintenance of the building. If there was a large repair, that'd have to be considered on a case-by-case basis, I think. But that seems to be $12,000, $15,000 a year. That would free up the people who are currently working to raise that money to focus on operations, promotion, all the other things they would do at the museum. So that's kind of where I'm at this particular time.
The other things that I have written down to are kind of calling for an organizational restructure for the purpose of the county museum operations. You know, the common goal that we have with the museum, and I don't know if I'm quoting any mission statement that's out there anywhere, word for word by any stretch of the imagination, but it is to collect, preserve, and interpret the history of Seneca County. We have an asset that we own that building and whatever percentage of the collections that are there, which is why I mentioned the inventories thing earlier. And I think if we keep that in focus, we can get to a much better place where we're at. And that's why I think going through the steps of a reorganizational structure could get us there. Is that going to happen overnight? No, it's not. It's going to take time. Did I come up with this idea on my own? No, I did not. I did a lot of research. I've asked a lot of questions. I spoke with Christy Weininger, who's the director of the Hayes Presidential Center in Fremont, who's a former director of the Wood County Museum. And she took on the position there in Wood County after they went through. They were in a very similar situation. We'll just change some of the organizational names were different. But they were in a very similar situation, and they went through this process and formed I think they call it a historical center board, but they formed a new entity, not far off from what Commissioner Zoller had proposed and mentioned, but in a much deeper and much more rooted fashion. I've got a copy of their bylaws. They're getting me copies of agreements that they have with the entities, as many of you represent Historical Society. I don't know that they have a foundation. Their park district is heavily involved because of the acreage that they have. So all of those things, and I've got more of a thought process on that, but I'm going to halt it at that point, and let's hear from some of you. I know I have, in my research, talked to citizens, heard from citizens, our meeting in Bloomville, we heard from a fair number. I've gotten emails, I've gotten phone calls. So what makes this as a process is a process. We're here to serve the citizens of and what's best for this county with what resources we have. And so before we can make decisions, that we need to have that input. So now is a good time for that to come forward. Who would like to go? Someone, I can't believe that. Somebody just got started. Okay, Mr. Breidinger.
Well, I don't know about Mr. Breidinger, but I'm here for a couple of reasons. One is to share maybe some ideas on direction that possibly that you might go for whatever that may be. However, I believe that the current board needs to have some skin in the game along with boards of the future. I think you've heard this from previous commissioners at the last meeting. There's a lot of things, I think, that are hidden between the lines here. There's a lot of good things that are said about this group. A lot of good things are said about that group, but it's a taffy pull, as Commissioner Zoller pointed out. He didn't present it as a taffy pull. However, I feel those are my words. I really believe that. It's going to be a difficult thing to get these two groups together, what I've seen. I'll give you an example. Myself, with the prosecutor attorney, Mr. Derek Devine, and myself went to a meeting of one of these groups, and everything was hunky-dory. The gavel came down to start the meeting. The very first thing happened, we were asked to leave. I looked at Derek, Derek looked at me, and quite frankly, we had no recourse. We left. I know that this happened also to other commissioners. That commissioner is not here at the time. I'd prefer to have him speak his piece. Again, there's the analogy of the taffy pull. To get these groups together, one group has no money. The other group, which I found out, quite frankly, I Googled them. When I sat in those seats that you sat in, there was $1 million+ within that organization to help. Now, in my opinion, I don't know what their mission statement is, but to help anything and everything for the Seneca County Museum. I really don't know what they have contributed, what those dollars are amount, but as I go back to Google them, the increase of that money has went up quite significantly. And here we are, we're talking about worrying about the museum staying open, raising money for the museum. It's the history, it's the backbone. Mr. Wagner, you have a dominant relative from this community. We all do, but his name is Mr. Gibson. He stands down in front of our courthouse lawn down there. I really believe that we need to come together. I'm not here throwing strikes at these people. I'm not throwing strikes at these people. How we get those three entities together to have skin in the game, I have no clue. Maybe these people in here can adjust to that.
And that's part of the more details of my reorganizational structure we would go into, and I would like to define, but I want to hear from a few more
Commissioner,
people
there's a
in the
lot.
essence of time.
There's a lot of variables there.
Yeah.
A lot. I think there's an argument over what belongs to who. I think it all belongs to Seneca County. So those things, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. Mr. Wagner, you're lucky. You're gone in a month. It's going to be tough on you guys. And I talked to Commissioner-elect Kirschner about this. And I think this is a pet peeve of his also. I don't want to burn him before he even gets in office. But I think it's a pet peeve of his also. I wish you wouldn't quote that, but maybe you will. Been there, done that before. So I ask you, as a previous commissioner, along with Mr. Stacy, along with Mr. Estep, the commissioners need to have some skin in the game. What that will be, I don't know. But I think that is a significant piece of this equation.
Mike, if I can add there, it sounds like after just hearing what my fellow commissioners have said is that it looks like that we are all in agreement to have skin in the game. I think the real tricks to the whole thing is what level of participation the commissioners can afford long-term, and what level of participation the two entities, if it will be two entities, will be involved. As far as the commissioners having skin in the game, I think what I'm hearing today, we're absolutely supportive of that.
I was just reinforcing that, Commissioner.
Okay.
But at the same time, you're exactly right, it's different times. And I agree with you and Mr. Wagner. You know, being in the business situation that I was previously in all my life. I agree with what you're saying. However, as we speak, there's new revenues coming in to the Seneca County. You got the gambling money. I have no clue what that is, but that's not chump change. If it's 10 cents, it's 10 cents more than you had before. There's a significant way, you know, and God, I admire the three of you for the job you're doing. I've sat in that seat. I know what it takes. However, you know, you're looking at a pretty significant number carrying over. Stacy, how much money do you think you'll carry over?
I think our unappropriated is about 1.2 right now.
1.2 million. That's a significant number. However, I agree, you know, first and foremost, you got wages. I mean, you got buildings, you got this, you got that. I understand that. I understand that. But your total all budget's gonna be what, 15.6?
And 15.8, maybe 16 for the end of the year.
Electric bill, Mr. Wagner gave a number of $12,000. Let's say it's plus or minus. On a $15 million budget, that's not a very significant number. And I thank you.
Anyone else would like to make any comments? I will go over my additional thoughts that go beyond 2015. And I just highlighted them briefly because I didn't want to hinder opportunity for input from others. Anyone else? Mr. Roth?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Mr. Commissioners. I wasn't able to make the meeting at Bloomville. I had a conflict that night. Being involved in the government of the city of Tiffin, I'm certainly not going to stand here and try to tell you how to budget your money and how to spend your money. It's a tight wire act, and I think you do a very good job of it. But I would like to make just a couple suggestions on if you have some loose change hanging around where you might want to put it. I think we've got to forget the past, really. And I'm a member of the Historical Society. I served on the foundation board. In fact, I was president for 2 years on the foundation board. I like history. I think history is a very important part. It was said one time by somebody, I don't know, I think I paraphrase it maybe even, you know, those who forget their history have no future. And we've done an excellent job with the museum we have down there. Gambling money. We were suckered into the gambling money by with the lottery years ago by saying it was for education. And everybody said, boy, that's going to help the schools, that's going to help this and that. And now we're getting a little chunk of change back on the casinos. And so I look at that as part of education and education funds. And what is the Seneca County Museum? It's an educational facility. My grandkids love to go there. And in fact, my daughter-in-law that just came here from Austin, Texas, she thinks that's one of the nicest places in the world, and she's volunteering there quite a bit right now. But I would just like you to think and consider that maybe with the gambling funds, if you have some left from that, to consider that towards the education of the people of Seneca County and the surrounding counties, just what Seneca County is. Like I said, I'm not here to try and tell you how to spend your money. I think you do a great job, and people don't realize what a balancing act that is unless they've been in that position. But like I said, I've been involved with all the entities, and I think if we forget the past and we can really work together and on the three partners like you talked about, Mr. Zoller, I think maybe we can make some headway there. But there's a terrific number of volunteers at the Seneca County Museum right now that are keeping that open. And I can't commend them enough for what they're doing there. And I think it's payback time now somewhere. If you can, then let's help out a little bit with the museum. And money's always behind everything. you can only do so much and then you run out. You need a little money. But you can't drain everything dry either, you know. $1 million sounds like a lot of money with the museum foundation, but, you know, if it's a roof, it's a boiler, it's things like this, investments I know that we've made at the museum, it doesn't take long to drain that fund. And what are the banks paying? A minus 0.001% on your money now. So, but that's just my thoughts. And you know, we've got a $3 million carryover of the city, and I don't want you asking the city for any money. That's why I'm very careful in what I'm saying here, so.
That might be a good idea.
Yeah, there we go, thank you. All right.
Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, hi, Jim Supance. I am on the Barnes Dines Seneca County Museum Foundation, but the foundation has not taken any position on this. We've talked about it. I think that this is the fourth meeting in about the last year that we have had on this. Once with Mr. Zoller met at the museum, and Mark Steinmetz and I met with Commissioner Stacy, and then there was a working meeting here a few months ago. I don't remember when. But it seems that one of the questions that has to be decided is the director going to be a paid position or not? It's my understanding that Tanya is not getting any pay, or whoever the director is not getting paid. Well, somebody's got to make a decision, maybe the county. Is that position going to be a paid position? And if the answer to that is yes, then the question, it seems to me, is who is that person going to be employed by? Okay. And then you've got to decide, well, how much is that person going to make? You know, I would think you would know the utilities and the insurance are kind of a fixed, maybe depends on what the temperature is, but it's basically the same. But the salary is got to be decided. And then you figure out how much it's going to cost to operate, somebody's going to cost to operate the museum. And then figure out what the easiest way is to have the chain of command, the organizational chart, to operate it. And to me, not speaking for the foundation, but to me, the easiest thing would be to have the county hire that person, and that person be a county employee. How many hours or what the benefits, I don't know anything about that. But the alternative would be to create another entity and have the W-2 issued by that organization. But it just seems that the county and then the two organizations contribute, donate, make grants, whatever you want to call it, to the county to assist in the operation of the museum, and the money is paid into the county and the county writes the checks. To me, anyway. But I think you've got to decide who the director, if there is going to be a director, or it's all going to be done with volunteer.
Jim, I mean, you can cut to the chase here. I mean, we know that when the county operated the museum, it had a budget of between 40 to 42,000. Let's just call it 45,000. Just cut right to the chase. So those issues would have to be decided by this new entity. Is there going to be a paid position or not? If we did the proposal that we talked about, it'd be a third, and a third. So each of us is going to pick up, what is that, 15,000? Okay, we have to make a commitment. If the three entities are unwilling to put 15,000 in, then we can say, okay, well, we can't afford a full-time director, it's a part-time director. Now the thing will go down, maybe the overall budget's 35,000, but those things will be decided by this group, and then it would be split up three ways. And again, if we would look at the further proposal that I'm making, if we find out that one of the groups isn't gonna be part of it, I would think that at this point, the commissioners would have to make a commitment, if it's willing to get involved with some sort of arrangement like that, we'd have to make a commitment up front that if one of the groups isn't gonna be supportive of the process, the commissioners would have to be willing to pick up 2/3. So I believe at this point, or at a close time thereof, that's a decision that has to be made by the commissioners. Are we willing to enter into a three-way agreement? And if the three-way agreement doesn't work out, are we willing to work into a two-way agreement? We pick up 2/3, the other third's picked up. If that decision's made, then all the other things would be really determined and governed by this new governing board.
And that's why I, like I said, starting to take that idea, and then actually through the research I've learned of how Wood County got through their times and what they did here, is to take that to a much deeper level and do this organizational restructure. And that would be for the purposes of the museum and the operations, already stated what we basically have as a common goal for the museum to collect, preserve, and interpret the history of Seneca County. But bring in an outside facilitator, and we bring a group together, that we initiate this and get it started from the Board of Commissioners, and help do the strategic reorganization. Let's bring people together, have a neutral party come in. I've talked to folks who would do this. We can get folks to do this that are very good at it, and it won't cost us money to have them come in and do that through SCORE. And if you're not familiar with SCORE, SCORE is a service corps of retired executives. And I've been in touch with them as part of my research to find out if they have folks with the type of background that could work with this. I've had a preliminary conversation with the gentleman who they recognized and pointed to and said, this guy would be really good at helping you do this. So, you know, that's just, I wanted to know what the possibilities and what were out there before I was to say something and not know that they'd have anybody. How long is this gonna take? 8 months to 18 months? I don't know. It'd be nice if we could do it tomorrow, but we can't. We've got too much history, no pun intended, to work with, to work through, and to protect.
Wouldn't the county have to decide, wouldn't the first decision the county would have to make is how much money the county is willing to spend on this project? If it's not 100%, I mean, not necessarily even a percentage, but we would be willing to pay $15,000.
Well, that's, I'm almost there. Let me
Okay, I'm
finish if I
sorry.
may. That's fine. So with that, and going through this process, in there, we'd figure out how things are gonna be handled. We would certainly ask the Historical Society and the Foundation both to be part of this effort to do this reorganization, to do the strategic planning, and to figure things out. And with that, absolutely develop an operational structure that includes the financial needs and how that can be addressed. Now, I don't know that I'm really ready to go there, but I think I just will. I also have a thought process on how we do that. Not that I didn't like the input that came here. Those casino revenues are right into the general fund. They didn't even begin to replace what we lost in local government funds that came into the county. It's like the old lottery incident Mr. Roberts indicated. I was on school boards at that time. Schools got this much, lottery money's gonna add more. So they gave it to the schools, but they took away others, so we stayed at level funding. There was no additional money for education with that lottery money. It went to education, it wasn't additional money. But so we look at ways to do this, and what Wood County has is a very unique situation because their park district had a levy that came on. They were getting inside millage. They transferred that inside millage to the museum and to the museum center. So a thought I have, which I've been in conversation with the auditor, and I don't have those numbers at this point in time with me, but is there a way that we could tie a fraction of a percentage? I don't even know what, I'm not even gonna tell you or fathom to tell you. I can tell you what a percentage of inside millage is. But to tie a fraction of a percentage of millage to the purpose, it's going to rise and it's gonna fall as inside millage does. Therefore, in the tough times that, as Mr. Wagner said, will happen again, but this is gonna fluctuate. Because as the supporters and proponents of the county museum, you know when you're at the table with your hands out and the sheriff's next to you and the EMS director's next to you and we're looking at public safety and we need an ambulance and we need another road deputy or we need this, you can't win. But our history is important. We have an investment in a building and we have some assets and we need to protect that. And I think one way, and as Mr. Supans was saying, we gotta know where the county stands on these things, and I think the county needs to have some investment. I'm gonna tell you, if you asked me 2 months ago, I might have said, boy, I don't want an employee in the payroll. I'm sure I said that publicly. I know I said it in this office to Stacy. But the more I think about this, we have to know how things are gonna handle and protect our building and protect our things in that building. And the way to do that is to know that that manager maybe answers to us. Just a thought. But again, we gotta have the funding stream, but we need to get there and we need to form a new Seneca County Museum Board, or whatever we're gonna call it, and go through this process. And it might be a knockdown drag out at times, I don't know, but isn't it not worth the effort to try? And hopefully in the end, we know what our entity is. I've got a copy of the Wood County's bylaws right here. I really like what they got. You know, we don't need to maybe reinvent the wheel entirely, we'll tweak it and make it fit our situation. But there's others too. I did not talk to the Allen County Director, but they also have a museum, and that was another name I was given to talk to. But that's my thoughts, and I know I want to talk amongst us here today to just have an understanding, so you do as well, of what in the more immediate future we might do for this last year of this renewable agreement, that lease agreement that exists with the Historical Society, to offer some major relief there. But that's the thought. So additional comments, yes.
My name is Paula Crum, and I'm a volunteer at the Seneca County Museum. There's a few things I wanted to add to what Jim said. The farmers, their CAUV has gone up, our value of our farms has gone up. There's going to be extra money, again, that you'll be having. Another thing, the Seneca County Historical Society, our main objective is history, and to educate the public and to get them involved in the museum and our history. We've spent the past several years spending a lot of time coming up with the funds that we needed in order to run the museum. With this third, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to continue working as hard or harder to come up with our third. Our third should also include our volunteers, our docents, everything that we do as a volunteer, and our hours, our commitment, our time should be included in that 1/3 of ours. That is our contribution to the museum, and I think that should be taken under consideration.
Thank you. And again, that's if the direction of a third type scenario is what played out.
Correct.
Any additional comments?
Real quick, Jan Dundor, and I want to basically echo additionally what Paula has mentioned. You don't understand the museum. Yes, you have a director and she does a fabulous job, but you have a lot of other people donating a whole lot of their time and effort. I mean, Mark and many other people do talks to groups and so forth to help get the word out as to what the county has had in its past and what it can continue to offer, all right, as far as education and everything else. Again, if we don't remember our past, we can't go forward in a positive fashion. So I want to echo that the volunteers, without all the volunteers and the time and effort and money, you know, it costs money for the volunteers to come and bring paper and this and that and to help decorate and do all these other things that nobody else is paying for. I mean, the volunteers are a big part, and in general, I think the great majority of them are part of the Historical Society, and they really need to have that considered. It's very, very important part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Mike Ringel, and I'm one of Tanya's assistants. When she's not available, or Mark's not available, or anybody is not available, I am at the museum to make sure it's open. I also participate with the Heritage Festival on the school days out at the village, and in May we have the third graders that come in, and two of the things that these youngsters really catch on to at the museum are the bullet hole in in the east parlor, and the four-legged duck upstairs in the upper room. I also do tours with Heidelberg and Tiffin University, Professor Stover from Tiffin University. I've done his classes for, what, 3-4 years now? Nancy, my wife, came home from a meeting at the museum and said, hey, Tanya needs you down at the museum Monday night to do a tour. Just like that. Okay, I'm there. And it's just like everybody else. And with her, I have to say this. For the last year, I have complained and complained about the money that has come out of her pocket to buy supplies at the museum, food, whatever, when they put on these luncheons. Now I finally got to the point where, you know, I agree with Dan and Paula. Our time as volunteers at that museum should be considered as the Historical Society's third. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to say anything?
Hi, I'm Bill Hoffert, and I've got a lot of concerns, but the main one that's never been said, that was said over at Bloomville, and I'm still very curious that in 1942 era, there was a contract that was signed between the Troxel family and the county commissioners, which was agreed upon on many aspects. What's that? Okay. So I've still got a lot of concern because nobody's been bringing it up about what the contract is. It was done for over 70 years and followed. So all at once now we're talking about doing completely, totally different things. Nobody's asked the Troxels what happened to the contract. I mean, I realize none of us were around for that. I mean, it's not your fault if it was bad. But it was signed, it was, you know, processed properly, and there's specific things in there that were said and agreed upon that all at once are not being talked about here at all. So what about legalities with the contract?
If I may address that. Bill and I have talked about this before, and I have a copy of what, this is not a contract, it is a commissioner's resolution. We have 3 documents there. You have a commissioner's resolution accepting the gift from the Troxels, you have a copy of the Troxels' will, and you have a commissioner's resolution saying, okay, let's start paying the bills, we've got a building here. All that is a commissioner's resolution. It is not a contract between the Troxels and the commissioners in any way. And resolutions are changed every day. It doesn't say what you think it says. You think it says we're bound to pay the electric bill for here until eternity, and that's not what it says. It's just saying, hey, let's start paying the bills now, we've got a building.
Well, then why would you agree to, and state specifically in there that you will pay the bills, that the county pays them? It doesn't state anything about historical societies or anybody else. It specifically says the county.
And that's where Commissioner Wagner is outlining that it states that in a resolution, and a resolution, a contract, a lease, I'm looking for the one that I have, it would be superseded by the next one that restates those purposes. You know, we put into resolution our action for our coverage of our health insurance. Well, the next resolution that changes that supersedes that and changes that. The Board of Commissioners went into a lease agreement and offered that as explained with the tight financial situation at the time. And otherwise, you know, I mean, the alternatives, one, they cut the employee, but then was, in order to continue this, we need somebody to take over it, and this lease agreement then became the document. And that's the document I'm referencing to, goes into its last renewable year in 2015.
So in other words, you're allowed to break your own resolutions?
We change
No,
resolutions
they
all the
change,
time.
they change.
When
Yeah.
did you change them?
Well, when this lease agreement would have been voted upon to do.
And all that, all
Probably
that,
before that, I don't know, but this is the current one that's being enforced.
When you cut through the legal stuff, all that resolution says is, let's start paying the bills. Notify the auditor to pay the electric company. It's not a binding thing that you're gonna pay the electric forever. You know, we hired Cindy Keller to be administrator at one point. Later, we hired this young lady to be administrator. So resolutions change continuously. It's not,
But you didn't change your resolutions. I don't, see, that's what I don't understand. You guys made, not you specifically, but the forefathers of their commissioners. And all once now you say you're allowed just to jump around. Well, who told the Troxels who gave it under those pretenses, who changed them?
the Troxels did not even sign that commissioner's resolution. All we have is a copy of their will attached to it. There's no,
And as much as we're.
I'm sorry, I disagree with you,
Yeah.
Bill, we're just reading it
So the
differently.
Troxels can come back anytime and take the building and the contents back then?
No.
You said it's not legal though, because you didn't sign nothing.
Well, there's, yeah. Like I said, we could argue a lot about that part of history and how that, but that is not a document. Does that, the current lease is the binding agreement we have now. And again, we're proposing today to make some adjustments to this before we go into the last year of it, to add some relief. And I'm proposing, as it has been proposed by others and some of you as well, that we definitely do something different for the not so distant future. But we need to do that with some work, and we gotta roll up the sleeves and put some effort into it and make sure it works. We need more than a Band-Aid. We need to make some surgery here. And there's a hand back here.
Well, at Bloomville meeting there, you said there, one of the secretaries, whatever, looked back and they did not find any revisions or any amendments to it, so how can you actually break it then? You're supposed to be paying a caretaker too, and you broke a contract, breach a contract on this.
You know, I mean, we could argue a day, but obviously,
You better
what
get
we're
an
doing is,
attorney in
I
there
don't
to
believe
get
we've done
the
anything,
legal
I don't think.
aspects. I don't agree with you guys.
Okay, well, I
Okay.
do, that's fine, we don't have to agree. But I don't believe this Board of Commissioners or some previous boards of commissioners did anything illegal. It's a matter how they chose to handle things, and we'd have to look into that further. Anything else on other, yes?
Yeah, Mark Simons, I'm with the museum too, you know me, but the last thing we want to do is be a pain in your side every time we come up here. But what you're seeing is the outcome of a passion that we have for the museum. And we know that these decisions for budgeting, you know, I've worked for American Standard for 26 years. We went through declines and we went through cuts, and I'm working with the city right now. I know a little bit about the budgets and stuff. I know that these things just don't happen overnight. We would gratefully accept Commissioner Wagner's and any of your help for any kind of funding going into our next year. Just a bit of the facts of what we've done these last 3 years. We stepped in because we had a concern mainly, and ultimately because we were afraid the museum was going to shut down and things were going to be sold. I mean, that was the discussion that was being held. We didn't want to see our history, you know, be cast to the winds and into antique collectors' hands and everyplace else and never get it back again. So we went about trying to do the best job we could. We've put in, as of this date, nearly $30,000 over the last 3 years in direct payments to the commissioners. Also, we put in close to $3,000 in additional monies towards getting the supplies and fundings we needed to do things for some of our luncheons and some of our other advertisements that we've done. We couldn't have done this without a great support from a lot of people who really are behind us and invisible behind the scenes of giving money to help, you know, in little bits here and there. We've grown our luncheons and our speaking engagements to a point where they're sellouts about every time we do these things because people are getting so involved with our local history. Our Facebook page is being used by school teachers because of the school teacher middle school told us he uses, Tiffin Tuesdays, he uses our Facebook page for that, to teach our local history because they're complaining they're not even allowed to teach it in schools. They come to us for this. We have authors coming to us for help with with their information on history. We have all kinds of things that we've been doing to be able to get some relief from having to do this immense fundraising to being able to help more would be great, would be a great benefit. But I wish everybody would look to see that, you know, what we have here, what the Troxels gave, what the early 1915, when we're celebrating a 100-year anniversary of the Seneca County Historical Society, that developed and gathered all these collections. You know, we have such a great gift that we've been given here. We use the museum on the covers of all of our promotional things for the county and for the city. It's a part of of the education community, the culture that they want to bring in, to bring families and the businesses into Tiffin, to make it something, that a desired place that you want to live. We need to consider that as almost like an advertising piece for our town, for our county. Consider it a part of maybe your advertising costs, kind of in a way. But again, I mean, this is going to be it's going to take a while to work this stuff out, and we're here mainly to keep the museum running, to keep it of interest, to keep it thriving, and we're willing to work and see what can be done. And like I said, we would accept any kind of help we can get.
Can I throw something out to the commissioners at this time?
Go right ahead.
Both of you are talking about some sort of restructure, and if that's the way you want to go, I think that's the way we should explore. What if we did as I suggested in the meantime, we paid the utilities, heat, light, whatever, and general maintenance, which probably amounts to $12,000–15,000 a year, while this thing is unfolding, while we're exploring how this marriage will work out. Would that be something that would be acceptable to the board?
That was exactly my thoughts.
Okay.
I think
For the
we-
interim, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
Commissioner, go ahead.
Go ahead.
For the interim, to do something like that, to offer some immediate relief. I love your comment, Commissioner Stacy. If there is truly an interest to combine everyone together, let's, with the help of SCORE, let's set up some strategic planning processes or whatever, reorganizational things that we could set down to see if we can find common ground. In the meantime, we've given relief. You know, it's not all the relief everybody wants, but it's something. I think this is. I like it. I like it.
I think what we'd have to formally do is that we do an amendment to the current lease, because there's that 1 year going into it. And that amendment outline that the utilities and the maintenance of the building would be expenditures that would come back and be the responsibility of the counties, and that we would take care of those things. I would also like to see, and again, we gotta work through this, we gotta see it in writing, and we'll debate it again, with public input, is can we also link something in there to request that we get a complete inventory of things, maybe by the end of the first quarter, with some help, with us maybe offering some help on that, whether that is, we need a little monies, we need to recruit some people in Heidelberg or somewhere in education, some students to help, and commit somehow to know, because when we start the restructuring effort, that's a key part of things, to know where those lie, and who has to bring those to the table. I don't think they're 100% all ours, the counties. But I would like to make sure we're going to get that defined very soon as well, because I think we'll need to know that as we move forward into what the very near future becomes for the museum and whatever that operational structure is. But I am all for an amendment to the lease, that one takes care of those type of expenditures as well as outline something about inventory. Mr. Brightinger.
Mike Brightinger again. I admire the wisdom, and I really mean this, the wisdom of the board of the decision that you just made. I think it's very significant that the magic word throughout this room, these four walls today, it is passion. On all three entities, there's a major passion for that facility. If it be from Mr. Roberts talking about education, to monies, to whatever. And God love you, Mark Stein, that was very good what you did. But again, the wisdom of this board is well known today.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Commissioner Stacy, if I could just, and maybe I'm jumping into something that I don't really know all the ramifications, but this inventory and all this, to me, this is county stuff as to who owns it. It's in the museum, and kind of bothers me a little bit. And I know there has been some discussions, well, this is mine, that's, this. But you know what, if we're gonna put a program together, maybe all the parties gotta turn around and say, you know what, this is the county's, this is no longer mine, or this is mine, and the county would have to make a commitment that it always is gonna stay in the county and we're not gonna sell it. Yeah, I think if we could do something like that, then we could stop all this, and I don't know, again, maybe I'm making a statement, I don't know the specifics, but I I just don't like that to say, this is mine, that's yours.
Well, no, but we need to know whose it is. If it's not all the counties, we need to know moving forward whose it is.
Well, that's what I'm
And if
saying.
we can define it all as the counties, yeah, great, but that's not fair to something that belongs to somebody else, you know? So we gotta figure that. So I'm just saying, we just need, that's gonna be, we're gonna need to know that as we move forward, and I don't know what's in place to make.
How about if you say it's all the counties?
With that, as far as an inventory, what belongs to the county, you know, that's fine and dandy. But you also have people that have signed statements stating that they have brought this item or items to the museum on loan. So, you know, you would need to check those out also.
Right, exactly. See, there's things like that, and we'd have to know that. It's another hand right here, yes.
Nancy Ringo, this inventory thing has already been done, I don't know how many times.
Okay. Well, if it's done, that's great. I just, yeah.
And I would like to know, when are you gonna get this board together and when are you gonna get started on it? It's something that should have been done a long time ago as far as I'm concerned, and I think it's a great idea. But I think it should be started, and started soon.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. We're not at that point, and that's what I had not discussed the concept of, to the level I took it, with with anybody other than the people I did my research with, and this is the first I've shared it with the two fellow commissioners, so, I would like to see it happen. If I know they like the concept, I'll keep working on it. But I needed to bounce that off, and I'm sure there'll be some feedback after some wonderful articles and a couple of papers are gonna appear. The jump section and cover all of the fine details here. Tanya.
Yes. Tanya Hoffert, Museum Director, and as all of you seen in the paper today, the Museum Curator at Bucyrus also. Paid. But I would just like to thank everybody that's here today for all the support and love and everything for the museum. And I know there were some people that thought, oh yay, it's in the it was on the AT advertiser, she's leaving. Well, guess what? I'm not. I'm here to stay. Some people don't like it, some's not. I really don't care. But I think we really, Stacy, you know we've done this inventory stuff before. The auditors came over, Julie and them, they spent a week in one room and realized how long it was going to take to actually do an inventory. My opinion with the inventory is there's never really been an inventory done.
So
from day one,
okay,
things have been added, you know, yearly onto the county reports and stuff. But over the past years of past directors and stuff, and not including myself, and I am nowhere near some of them, things were sold out of the museum, things were given away out of the museum, things were given out on loan, never returned. I'm not responsible for them things. They were not there when I started there. And when we did the inventory with Julie, she did a spot inventory. That really don't tell you anything. And I know the foundation claims that they own a lot of stuff in the museum. Do they have proof it's theirs?
See, why I mentioned we've got to come to some consensus on what we're starting with, going into a new entity.
I think personally it all should say that it belongs to the county, because there's some things there that I don't agree with. And I don't think you really want to get into a big, is this yours or this ours thing, and having the courts or whoever involved with it. I'm like you, I think if it's there for the museum and it's there for the public, everybody should be helping. And if they have stuff here in the museum, which they have, why haven't they stepped forward the last 3 years to help us at all? They got stuff in there, they just admitted it. Are they helping with any utilities or anything, just house that stuff? Fran, have you guys helped with any housing?
I wasn't going to say anything. I'm Fran Fleet. I'm president of the Barnes Deinzer Museum Foundation Board. And according to the lease, the foundation is not involved. It is the Historical Society that has the operation of the museum. Right? And yes, the foundation has done things. We have some projects in line. And I will also say that, yes, we have proof of what the foundation owns in the museum, and we pay insurance on those contents. All right? Because that was one of the things that the county said. Having said all of that, yes, foundation is very interested in whatever the mechanism is for a 3-group board, project, whatever. We would really like to be involved in that. Thank you.
Can I ask, is the foundation and the society, are they willing to just put all the goods into the county's basket and forget ownership of it, as long as the county makes the commitment and not gonna sell it? And I understand, if the county doesn't make that commitment, if I was on your board, I would never agree to that. But if the county made that seems to be a major area of contention, and could that just resolve all of those issues? Now, the county's gonna have to pick up the insurance on it, so there's gonna be some cost involved with it there. Now, if there's individual pieces that people have bestowed upon us, then we have to honor those issues.
Can this Board of Commissioners bind a future Board of Commissioners to never sell something?
That's the prosecutor's.
No, it's just like that resolution, you know, it can.
Yeah, you can change it tomorrow.
And also, a lot of the donations to the foundation were made because the foundation could say, we will not sell. And the county could not make that promise.
Tanya, did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I better shut up while I'm ahead, because you don't want me to go any farther.
I know one of the things I would like to be able to get if I can, so maybe Fran, you're the person with the foundation, and Tanya or Mark with the Historical Society, as I continue discussions of bringing in, unless someone's gonna tell me they think that's a waste of our time, an outside neutral party to facilitate some things. Or if it's on websites, I'll do that. I'm gonna tell you, I didn't try to hit those. I listed the members of your groups, bylaws, financials, things that could help me understand how you have been operating and what you have. I mean, I don't need to, like I said, I'm not asking for anything you don't think I need to see, but assuming it's, again, if we all have the focus and a common good, and as we move forward, because those are the types of things, I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but, you know, my background, and I've taken a lot of business management classes with my master's degree and things I've done as a public involvement manager, et cetera. The more background I can present to someone I'm asking, the better they're gonna be able to prepare and to effectively and efficiently help us through a process that may be 8 to 18 months in its making. And I would like to see it start immediately. That's just opinion of one. So that kind of information, or direct me to that, will be very beneficial. That was something he already immediately asked me. He said, what about this, that? And I said, those are things I've yet to get. I've got to get those things. I haven't even tried to get them yet. Might have them and I don't know that I have them. So anyway, that's just thoughts. So at this point in time, I don't want to withhold anybody else from speaking about the museum. We have spent an hour. I think that's time well spent. I don't think, and I think I'm safe to speak on behalf of the entire board here, we can't thank those who have volunteered enough for what you've done for the museum over the years, you know, under the times, whether given of your time and your money, and what you've done in protecting Seneca County's history. It's just now times that we are in a different place, and for various reasons, this is where we're at now, and now it's more important to protect that history is that we look forward. We can't keep looking back over our shoulder. We need to get to a new starting point and move forward from here.
Wisdom.
So I'm hearing that Stacy will work with Mark or whoever to get that amendment to the lease, saying that we'll pay the utilities in the meantime.
And maintenance.
And they can stop, you know, you can stop paying them right now as far as I'm concerned. And then one of you will get with this, what was the name of this group? Score, and once it works into their schedule, try and set the initial meeting up to form a new agreement of some kind.
It would be my goal to have an outline of how that time frame might look like before the end of the year, and know a date for the very first gathering or whatever it might be coming into January. And as far as the more immediate, the amendment, I guess, because since there is a lease agreement, utilities and maintenance are
Well,
different
that
part
was
of
my
that.
question. When do we want to start it? And Commissioner Wagner, you suggested to start it immediately. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as well, this last quarter. The way it does work, for those who would not know, is that the invoices, the utilities and that we pay, the Historical Foundation reimburses us. We bill them one bill instead of all the individual. I believe it's all accumulated in one, and then it's reimbursed to the county. And we could easily include in that the maintenance and utilities for the last quarter,
Make it retroactive.
retroactive for the last quarter of this year. Yes.
Paula Crum again. Maintenance, that's a big word. What does that mean?
I guess in my original thoughts, I said general maintenance of, you know, the broken window,
Shovels.
yeah, I know, shovel snow, I suppose. That if there's gonna be a major undertaking, a new roof or something, that would have to be kind of a case-by-case
Well-
scenario, I would think.
And I guess maybe we link in with that amendment is that, you know, maintenance is being care and upkeep of the building to be reviewed with the commissioners. And we wouldn't want the historical society to decide, you know, we need to remodel and let's, you know. I mean, in all fairness, I don't think anybody's gonna do that, but we need
That's
to make
fair.
sure there's an understanding of what that means and how that might pass through on those types of decisions. Yes.
And however, even though that you may be picking up the costs, we have earmarked a couple of things that we think you could really save some money on that may take a minor investment that would save in the long term. So like the alarm systems and things like this, need some kind of an upgrade, I think, and it would really pay off as far as the lesser utility bills, whether you're paying them, we're paying them, or whatever, so I'm just for the overall benefit of the county.
Okay, so some things to maybe want to get addressed in that addendum as well. Yes.
Paula Crum again. There was an update in the furnace throughout the whole system, and it has cost us considerably more.
We're aware of that.
I was wondering if that is being addressed for us or for the whole system. It's going to be less, or what's happening with that, because we were concerned about that.
Yeah, and we are addressing, we had a couple variables move at the same time, makes it real hard to define what caused the problem. One variable being Mother Nature, and the other being that we went to an energy saving program, and implemented control units in different aspects. Then link in the fact of the variables of the control contract and the energy savings didn't necessarily factor into when a boiler is gonna blow out or whatever it's gonna do, and not in your building, but in others. So we are looking at that, and we are definitely very closely looking at that, so.
So that it'll go down?
Yeah, well, like I said, those are gonna become ours anyway, but we're gonna want it to be as efficient as you would want it to be, so those would be things to look at. So we'll probably, Mark, and wanna definitely have a conversation with you or whomever has, you know, your suggestions of things to be.
That system rollout was certainly not flawless in any of our buildings. It was a tough-
Yeah, the proposal was it's supposed to save us, what, 30% on our energy costs, but then in the museum, it's kind of a unique situation. You can't rate, because of the humidity and so forth, you can't raise it and lower it like you can in the other buildings. And Commissioner Stacy is right, we are looking into that. I know short term, it actually increased your cost. So here we're looking at 30% reduction in our energy consumption, the museum had increased it, so no, we hear you loud and clear there. Especially now since we're gonna be paying the bill for being even more diligent.
Well, taxpayers will be paying the bill.
Taxpayers are paying for that.
Can I just clarify? The only thing in maintenance, it says the leasee at all times shall maintain all of the premises here in clean, neat, and orderly condition is all it indicates in the current lease. Like I said, they pay for, maintenance could be cleaning even. So are we talking about supplies for cleaning? Are we talking about our maintenance going down there and actually doing the cleaning? Or are we just talking about maintenance as windows and?
I say we define that, and we will be discussing it again before we vote on a resolution or an amendment to that lease.
I don't wanna get that we're cleaning the museum.
No, I wanna-
We would supply, the
But I
furnace.
say let's work out those details, because there's a lot to it we want to look at. And some of the cost things that Mark talked about and Paula's talked about, I think we want to make sure, you know, we're looking into everything we know, and we have to detail it out, we detail it out.
I don't want to break an expensive lamp either.
Right, exactly. I mean, you know, there is things that, you know, to be protected and,
I would suggest that you work with those folks to get the details and just bring it back to us when you get it.
Okay.
If that works.
But again, it's not my desire that we send our maintenance people down there to clean the museum and so forth, not at all. That's not, maybe to provide the supplies to do it, but yeah, I don't wanna be responsible for those delicate objects. That should be people that
I don't think you
are
ever
versed in
were.
it. Pardon?
I don't think you ever were.
Well, that's right, and we don't wanna know.
Wisdom.
But it is, it's overwhelming, the passion. And Mr. Brian, you said it well, the passion that's in this room. There's just an opportunity how we can create and improve on an asset that we all own as residents of Seneca County. And I think that's really a plus. And I applaud my fellow commissioners. I think that come up with some very creative, I love this SCORE thing and of facilitating this and all the groups getting together and so forth. And we have to forget the past. What's in the past is in the past. We need to go forward.
Right.
As Commissioner Stacy said, the mediator is almost a must.
Yeah.
Oh, I see a hand in the back from one of our regulars.
Yes, Loretta Miller, Tiffin, Ohio. I admire what the people have done with the museum and all the time and money that they have spent and the hours and hours to keep it going. And if I hear you, commissioners, correctly, you're gearing toward a resolution to supply the raw materials, the heat, power, that sort of thing. I think the county also should take a look for this next calendar year in supplying a little more funding in terms of assets to provide more hours of open time at the museum. I remember hearing in this room David Zacher, the SIDAC person, stating that it was unfortunate that the museum could not be open with longer hours for people coming in from out of town to view the assets and this sort of thing. And I'm thinking that the county should be providing some funds toward personnel in terms of a director who receives some pay for all of the hours and hours and hours and hours of work that they supply, and that some form of funding should be made available to them in this amendment to the lease. Say at least a $20,000 figure to help them in terms of reimbursement for some of the time that's spent, so that there would be a possibility of looking at extending hours. And as the John Detweiler and the selling, I forget what their terminology is for their Visitors Bureau. So, I mean, they gave a very positive report of money and taxes and things coming into the county, and that to provide some more funding for the museum, I think would also improve this and would be a positive thing for the county to do. And I know they get their bed tax and whatever, that some funds need to be made available, I think, to the museum in this redoing the lease agreement for next year, so that there is more funding available for them. So I think that ought to be really considered in amending the lease. Thank you.
Well, one thing I think that we need to make perfectly clear here is that the other entities, their importance of still bringing in private donation. Because from what I understand is the Historical Society, basically 100% of their fundraising efforts just went towards the utilities, period. So if they continue with those efforts and bring in those funds, and the county picks up the utilities, that's gonna alleviate some, or allow some funds to be put over the other thing. I am not in any way advocating that the county pick up this tab 100%. Anyway, we need these private entities to continue to extend their fundraising capabilities and to help the county, and we'll work together. That's gotta be paramount in this, or if not, we're gonna paint ourselves into a picture and we're gonna pick up the whole tab, and 3 years from now, budgets are gonna be crunched and we're gonna be all over this again. We're trying to create an environment that we can sustain the county museum long-term for the benefit of everyone to its fullest potential, period.
Paula Crum. I understand that you hired a new person to write grants. And I understand there's lots of monies out there.
Oh, regional planning.
Right.
Regional planning?
Regional planning.
Regional planning.
Hired a new director, and that includes grants, yes.
Okay, that's what I was
Yeah,
referring to.
we didn't have
We did not.
But, yeah.
But someone that would help us with the grants, is that correct?
Yep, yep.
So
And
we
and
could
if those requests
expect
came in
help?
through us, we could either check with regional planning if they help us, and/or maybe out of this office, we can help with that. I know, and that's, I didn't even skim the surface on that in my research, but that was after talking with Brenda. She was telling me, there's some grant potential out there and some things.
Correct.
But as volunteers, it's a difficult task to take on top of everything else people are doing and whatever you're doing to make a livelihood, because it's not volunteering. So that is something I think, yeah, we could help with and/or seek some guidance from them.
Thank you.
I believe that's what you guys can help, is connect with regional planning. And it's the old squeaky wheel syndrome. You tell them what you need, and they'll keep looking. That's their job to look, it's your job to keep it on their hot burner.
Yeah.
Let's just
But
call
we'll
a
have
spade
to
a spade.
we'll have to channel that through us though, because as they're not gonna be paid entities to regional planning, as the regional planning assessment comes from the county, and then the individual townships and villages and cities that are part of it. But through us, we can use those resources without a problem, so. If there's no further citizens' remarks that want to be made on the museum, we'll move on to the rest of our agenda, yes?
Char Distel. And last month, I heard Dale Stacy and Ken Egbert, I think I heard them both mention paying Tanya. Excuse me, Kenny Eastep and Dale Stacy about paying Tanya, and they strongly suggested that Tanya should get paid. Now, I never saw this in the Advertiser Tribune under their notes, and I never heard you guys mention it. What is your thoughts on this? They were former commissioners, and they strongly recommended
Yeah.
that she does get paid.
Yeah, they did, and it's a comment like everything else, and I think we're looking at a little more of the bigger picture where we're at and trying to figure out what we know we can do to help with some relief in this last quarter, going into next year. And I don't know that the personnel issue is one that anybody's ready to take on at this point in time, knowing that I think we're on the brink of a new future and of organization for the group. And no disrespect to Tanya or to anyone else, but, and as I think I stated that night to those two individuals that I greatly look to for more reasons than one, is indicated that even though, they were thinking they would have been in a heyday to have $1 million budget and or the 10 million or $9 million budget, whatever Kenny mentioned, they had to where we're at. And I said, as we would be in respect if our personnel costs were at the times they were when you had those budgets too. So it's just a vicious circle of lots of things, but we hear you loud and clear, and we heard them loud and clear, and that's all part of this. All right, we will continue with the rest of our agenda. We won't beg you if you need to move on to other things, but blame you, but you're certainly allowed to stay if you wish to. So we can start with the rest of the new business items with the bill vouchers.
Thank you, everyone.
Save the money.
You're not gonna stick around, Fred?
Clear out
Okay,
more.
otherwise it won't be here anyway. Or we could take a brief recess if you think we need to.
Pete, Mike?
Thank you for coming. Marianne. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
No baby yet, right?
Yeah. No, they say no, the 22nd, maybe. Hey, Gary.
Okay, all right, thank you.
See you, Jim.
Mr. Roberts, always a pleasure.
It is?
Okay, 11-19 will continue with bill vouchers.
And I think that should be 114 and 113, but on the agenda it only says 13 and 14.
Yeah, it should be 100.
Okay.
There's a few more, there's been a few more than that, you're saying?
Yes, yes. I have an appropriation adjustment within the real estate assessment fund, 016, moving $20.87 from workers' comp to the HSA contribution. I have a supplement to the permanent appropriations for the general fund for 2014. This is putting $139,777 into the uninsured expense. This is to get the replacement of the chiller at the sheriff's department project moving, and we're still working with the insurance company on that. I have an appropriation adjustment within the M&R fund, 020, moving $20 or $200, excuse me, from equipment to asphalt. I have a resolution authorizing the sale of county-owned property, a 2003 Ford Crown Victoria, on behalf of the Seneca County Sheriff. I was going to put that up on GovDeals. And I have another authorizing the sale of county-owned property, 2003 Ford Crown Victoria, on behalf of the Seneca County Sheriff. And we have another one authorizing the sale of county-owned property, 2001 Ford E350, on behalf of the Seneca County Sheriff. We have a resolution authorizing the snow removal and salt agreement for the county's large lots with Elkert Lawn Mowing Service, pending prosecutor approval. We have a resolution authorizing the snow removal and salt agreement for the county's small lots with Nick's Lawn Service, also pending prosecutor's approval. And the additional resolution that I had was for supplement to the permanent appropriations for the EMA Fund 102, putting the $14,079.40 into other expense to get the siren project moving. And that's all I have.
Heard the resolution, to motion?
I move we approve.
Seconded.
A motion and a second to approve the resolutions as stated. Comments or questions? I have one. On the snow removal, and I guess mainly pertaining to the small lots.
Yes.
In talking with maintenance the other morning, when this white stuff showed up, the discussion of, I guess he had a concern, and I don't know if it's ever happened or not, but that it could, that if they come to plow our lots, and there's vehicles in the lots that aren't routinely there, like our fleet in the back part of this lot over here, that they're probably gonna still charge us for doing the lot, or doing what they can, and it's not gonna be the best job they could do if there's cars that remain there overnight. So are we considering signage? I mean, I don't know how you do that, or is it just a communications to our neighbors, who might be the ones that leave cars here overnight, and or their patrons? But there are some housing in the area, and it might just be from that, but, you know, like snow streets, I don't know if you can have snow parking lots, that if there's so many inches of snow, you know, or that we have policy that by the time we get them towed, our vendor's gonna be on to the next lot.
Yeah, 'cause
But-
they come really early, and I think that last year we had that issue, and he just did his best to plow around those vehicles.
So maybe it would be beneficial for us to communicate, and maybe it's in our wonderful coverage in the newspapers, that's, that the, you know, county, we've been, I think, more than generous and not getting hung up on people utilizing our lots. We did some additional signage with the new parking lots for the purposes during business hours. We have some needs to have some spots, and or even up along the building after business hours. We come in for night meetings or to depart, that we don't get blocked in spots, et cetera. But is that, you know, some common courtesy to the use of those spots to allow us to maintain them free of snow and ice is necessary. Just thoughts.
Is it the same vehicles all the time?
Not anymore, because there's people that, the apartments over there, they're always
Those would be the same.
I was gonna say, if it's the same people, we could put
Well,
something
yeah,
on the windshield.
those would be, but sometimes if it's people that are either staying the night there, they just parked their car there and left it there overnight.
I don't know if the management of those facilities would, you know, assist us at all. I don't know, just I thought we had to have some kind of effort to let them know that, you know, that's the only way we're gonna be able to maintain them free of snow and ice is to be able to get them plowed accordingly, and that could become an issue if old man winter's staying around like he did last year.
And we want them to be able to use them after hours for their business, but we just don't want them overnight.
Exactly, but,
If it's the same vehicle, you put something on their windshield saying,
yeah,
move this thing, but I don't know if it's different ones all the time, I don't know how you do that.
yeah, so.
It's always been a issue in winter. There's been times that we've plowed the vehicles in because there's been so much snow.
That might be the way to handle it, put a little dent in it and everything.
That's not a kinder, gentler commissioner's office.
Usually if we notice that the car hasn't been moved, if the plows have come in and, obviously you can tell if a car's been moved or not, we usually will call the sheriff and say, can you figure out who owns these and give them a courtesy call saying they have so many days. He's got orange stickers he can put on there, but that's for, car breaks down. We've had those in our lot, but we usually try not to be too sticklers with it because we do have businesses and
Right.
residents around here, and there's limited parking in Tiffin, but we can put up a sign.
It needs to be on a cooperative nature,
Right.
It's kind of compromised both ways.
Yeah. But I don't think our lot being, we just had it done, we have it may be on one of the poles out there about the ordinances in reference to the city ordinances for our parking lot. I'll double check with Dean, make sure those are up, but it's up to you guys what. We can put friendly notes on there and just say, hey, if it snows, if they're sleeping, they may not know it's snowing when the.
Well, that's true, but I guess they, like you do, I suppose the folks do on the streets, they don't, they find somewhere else to park on Snow Street if they know the forecast is for snow.
Yep.
That exceeds the amount, so. Right. There's no further discussion on any of the resolutions so forth. Roll call.
Commissioner Riker?
Yes.
Commissioner Zoller?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes, thank you. All right. I guess we can revisit a opportunity for citizens' comments. Are there any at this time? Tom? Lost you back there amongst the crowd.
I just have one comment about the snow or the cars parked in the lot.
Mhm.
If they're from a residence or a building that's renting a room or whatever, isn't it up to that person that owns that building to furnish them a parking space?
They probably
I
aren't,
don't
they probably aren't required to provide them parking spots, so they, but
But I don't see where it's up to the county to take care
No.
of that.
it's not our responsibility
I
either.
would cover
Yeah.
them up with snow. Thank you.
Normally they stay
Hopefully your car don't break down on
on.
there.
I hate that.
There's that sign for the street too, that once it gets to so many inches, you can't park on the street either, because they have to plow it.
Right.
Yeah, I
Like I said,
like
it might
that.
just take a re-education process to realize that the streets have that condition, well, so do we, because in order for us to maintain, have it clear for our employees and clientele coming in and out of our facilities.
That's a good idea. We could do that, put the sign out there, if the snow exceeds 2 inches, you're not allowed to park overnight on this parking lot.
Yeah, that's why I wondered if we'd have a snow lot like they have snow streets, but maybe not the same enforcement.
We can check.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, motion to
What you're right
adjourn.
about today, don't you?
I'll second.
All right, I made a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Wagner, second that.
I'll
All those
further.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 11:28, we stand adjourned. Thank you.